He was a morbidly obese surgeon destined for an operating table and an early death. Now he's a rebel MD who is fabulously fit and fighting to make America healthy again. This is Stay Off My Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia.
Hey, folks, welcome. It's the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast with Dr. Philip Ovadia, and we are thrilled to welcome Patrick Sullivan Jr. to the show today. He's in a minority in our guest list in that he is not a healthcare practitioner. He's not a physician. He's not a researcher. He's not a scientist, but I think y'all are going to be glad that we've got him on the show. So, Phil?
Yeah, I actually thought you were going to say he's in the minority in that you know him and I don't.
That's also true.
maybe a first for our guests. Most of the guests kind of come within my circle, but I'm actually really excited that you brought him into my circle. We're going to be talking about the new documentary that Patrick has out, and really the title says it all: Breaking Big Food. And this is something that certainly our audience is going to want to see and hear about. And so before we get to the documentary, maybe give us some of the background. How did you get to the spot of producing a documentary called Breaking Big Food?
Guys, thank you so much for having me on the show today. Dr. Ovadia, pleasure to meet you. And Jack, great to see you again. It's been quite a few years since we touched base, but I think you guys saw a post that I made on X about our new documentary, which is titled Breaking Big Food: How the American Food System Went Rotten and How It's Being Revived. This project started as a dream in the summer of 2024, and we really kind of had, I should say, my wife and I kind of had this vision of the food in America is so messed up and it's so hard to find clean food. And when you know better, you want to do better. The hard part is doing better and finding better choices. But there are purveyors in many local communities in America that are cooking clean, providing clean food because they also have seen the light. And what we chose to do with the documentary was to really put a spotlight on what's happening here where we live in the Phoenix area. And the through line of the documentary is really the creation of our new venture, which is Firefly Organic Coffee and Market. And basically, it started from my wife saying, we have this afternoon latte habit, but we can't find organic coffee, organic milk, and clean syrups at any coffee shop in Scottsdale. Maybe we should fix that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Jack, next time I'm out to visit, we know where we're getting coffee.
You know what's cool is what's cool is I watched the documentary and I went, oh my gosh, I drive by that time. Drive by that place all the time and I had no idea. I too have been looking for a source of clean coffee. So I'm stoked about that. Patrick, I think you ought to back up just a little bit before we get into the guts of the documentary. You actually have your own health story that starts a lot sooner than this, and it'd be good to hear about that because we have a lot of folks. We don't have a lot of healthcare practitioners who watch or listen to the show. We have just folks.
Hello to the folks. I am a folks. My dad and I started Jigsaw Health, which is a nutritional supplement company. We started that in 2005, so over 20 years, just 20 years ago. And in 2014, I had my health scare where I was driving home one day and kind of felt on my neck a little lump and thought, that's weird. I waited for 2, 3, 4 weeks or so. It didn't go away. Went to my practitioner and he said, that's right on your thyroid. It probably is an enlarged thyroid and could be the beginning signs of a goiter, which could be something as simple as an iodine deficiency, but could be as bad as cancer. And hearing the C word is God, I mean, it actually gives me kind of goosebumps just thinking of it now. It takes me back to that. It's literally the worst, most fearful, most anxiety ridden word anybody can hear for themselves or for a loved one. And that began my cancer journey. We did get a biopsy and it was indeterminate at first, which you're like, ugh, first of all, that wasn't very comfortable to go through. And now you're telling me you don't know for certain. So we did a biopsy again. This time I felt like they were able to determine, yeah, we think it's more likely a carcinoma, which of course now we're getting into the technical terms of cancer, making things sound even worse and more anxiety ridden. And those first several months of not knowing, but being scared about, do I have cancer? I was at the time, I think 38, and it was absolutely nerve wracking. It was terrible. The doctors that I went to for first opinion, second opinion, third opinion did not really make me feel very confident. One doctor in particular, who was a naturopathic cardiologist, meaning he tended to try to do natural treatments for cancer. He said, this is one of the good cancers because it's a slow growing cancer. That means it's not going to progress very fast. But because it's slow growing, it also means that it's slower to kill. So any natural remedies, any kind of things that we try to do could take a long time. And as I mentioned, those first few months of like just absolute anxiety, I was throwing up most mornings and oftentimes after other meals and stuff. I just had so much fear. I really had so much fear. And I would say I also had a certain amount of shame in that, hey, my dad and I started a nutrition company 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I guess it was at the time. How am I, the president of Jigsaw Health, getting cancer? What the hell? It was shame. It was fear. It was terrible. To cut to the chase at the end of it, pun intended, cut to the chase. We did end up doing a thyroidectomy in September of 2014, about 9 months after I got the first diagnosis. And thankfully, they were able to remove it. I did lose a little bit of my singing range vocally a little bit, which was kind of a bummer because put a little bit of a damper on my background singing capability. My wife and I were professional musicians at the time, but I was only the background singer. So it didn't make too much of an impact for our band. But then after the surgery, once I got my thyroid meds dialed in, guys, I really kind of buried it. I just put that whole chapter behind me. And I didn't really think that much about it other than the fact that, hey, when I wake up every morning, I have to take thyroid medication. But thankfully, my medication has been dialed in and standard. I didn't really think about it until we started to work on Breaking Big Food. And part of what we were filming, the director in my interview was asking me, why are you doing this? What is your reason for making this film? And my first answer was along the lines of, I absolutely want to help the Phoenix community have better food. That's why we're starting Firefly. We ourselves want to be able to get organic coffee that isn't full of mold or pesticides or heavy metals or what might be in other inorganic, non-organic coffee. And he goes, I'm not buying that. Why are you really doing this? And that's when it really kind of dawned on me. Is like, the thing that kind of pisses me off is that 11 years ago, I got cancer and nobody could tell me what the F happened to get it there. I never really learned what caused it. So I don't know how to prevent it. And again, am I at risk? Are other people at risk? Multifactorial, but that was, and there's a scene in the documentary where, of course, he kind of used that of, I got cancer in 2014. I didn't see that coming. And that kind of then leads off into my story. And it's been an interesting ride in the last year, and especially as the documentary has started to reach an audience.
That statement you made, it's been 11 years, nobody could tell me why I got it. And the implication, of course, being, and nobody can tell me how to keep from getting it again. And that right there is why I knew we wanted you on the show. We're in a situation today with our healthcare system where that's where most people are. Oh, it's a roll of the dice whether you're going to get cancer or not. Oh, it's genetic. There's nothing you're going to do about it. I just want to scream. I want to scream.
Yeah.
We've had conversations with a couple of more natural cancer practitioners, and it's what Jack was talking about has bothered me more and more as I've progressed through my medical career and gone through this. And the amount of times that we just kind of throw our hands up and say, we don't really know what's causing, condition X. And we don't even start to think about the most basics of our functions, right? What we eat. And it doesn't even occur to most doctors that whatever condition that they might be treating in that patient in front of them might have a little bit to do with how we survive, how we fuel our bodies.
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
I ironically feel like I have a better handle now on what caused the cancer. Would you like to hear my theory?
Oh, absolutely.
This is not a part of the film, but while we were filming, during the process of filming, my wife Ashley and I went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza 7-day meditation seminar retreat. And if you would have asked me 5-10 years ago, hey, you want to go meditate for 7 days? I'd be like, you're crazy. No, thank you. But
I love Dr. Joe myself.
I was going to say, I saw both of you nodding your heads. I'll assume that there's some awareness there. My wife, Ashley, was like, the Dr. Joe event, there's people that have these miraculous, amazing healing recoveries. There's people that like basically can walk at the end of it. There's people that all sorts of things. And she said one person even regrew their thyroid by doing meditation. And that, of course, given my history, perked my ears up. And I was like, that's interesting. I said, if she did it, to me, that was like hearing the 4-minute mile has been broken. Yeah. I was like, if someone else can do it, why not me? I have like my body innately knew how to grow a thyroid and all this other stuff in the first place. Might it still have that knowledge in there? So I kind of went open-minded and had a great experience there. And Dr. Joe, for those in the audience that don't know about him, his own story starts with a healing journey where he was a chiropractor. He was in a triathlon. He got hit by a car, broke several bones in his back while in the hospital, was given some surgical options, but they weren't great. And it was, hey, we can do this surgery, but you might not ever walk again. And he basically said, checking out against medical advice, I believe in the body's innate ability to heal itself. I'm not going to do the surgery. I'm going to go home and I'm going to heal myself. Totally effing crazy. And yet he did it in about 3 or 4 months. He was able to walk again. And he, of course, wrote a book about this, a couple of different books about it, but he tells this story. And again, it's another sort of 4-minute mile where I'm like, why not me? Why all these other people? Why not me? And one of the things that I learned at the seminar, the meditation retreat, is that it really healing comes down, according to Dr. Joe, to our nervous system. And if our nervous system is in a state of fight or flight, it's not in a process where it's going to make healing chemicals. Another thing that happens is if we are running subconscious programs that are things like, I'm not worthy, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm gross, I have whatever. And I, during meditation, discovered that I was running a subconscious program from an experience that happened when I was a teenager where I was like, ooh, I'm gross. And I had this understanding of, if I'm constantly informing my body that I'm gross, why would my body try to heal itself? Why would it want to? It seems like the natural thing would be, let's kill this thing that is gross. This is bad. Wow. Yeah, guys, the meditation retreat was a major milestone for me. And it's not covered in the documentary, but it happened during the process of filming the documentary. So it's been a sort of a big life-changing thing for me that happened 14 months ago.
My wife's late husband died from cancer. He got a diagnosis in Memorial Day weekend and was dead Labor Day weekend.
Wow.
And she's convinced that the cancer sprang primarily from some deep emotional, I don't want to reveal things that shouldn't be revealed, but I'm just confirming that those bad thoughts, negative thoughts, destructive thoughts that you had towards yourself, she's convinced that's what was going on with him as well. And Dr. Joe's so cool the way he's able to tie it all back to neurology, biochemistry. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Don't mean to go off the rails there, but that's seriously cool.
It's great. And I would say, yes, one of the great things about Dr. Joe is that he really is extremely scientific in how he is explaining the biology and the chemistry, so much so that it doesn't feel woo. Like there is, we're going to meditate. We're going to close our eyes and be still and try and go inward. And how many of us generally do that? Almost never. I wasn't raised to do any of that. So it was very odd for me. But the way that Dr. Joe brought me along was through science and logic and reasoning. And one of the things that really stood out to me during the conference, where he was talking about the chakras, the energy centers that we have in our bodies, and these energy centers can be measured with instrumentation, and they can hold stuck energy. Now, the throat is the 5th energy center. And when I got cancer in my thyroid, I was involved in a startup that was kind of a fail to launch. So Jigsaw Health was started in 2005, but we made a whole bunch of mistakes in the first several years, and it almost didn't make it. In 2008, it was a skeleton crew that was basically just kind of coasting. And so I went and joined another startup in 2011, and that startup had a lot of stress. And during that process for about 3.5 years, I didn't feel like my voice was being heard. I felt like the energy was being stuck. So is it possible? Is it viable? Is it an actual thesis that because of all this stuck stress energy in my throat related to this 3.5 year couldn't get off the ground startup, that I created my own cancer in that spot of stress? No other doctor has given me any other reason for that, any better reason than that.
Well, and what's fascinating to me about all of this is that for the last 4.5 years now, as we've been doing this show, it keeps coming back to energy. We have the scientists and the researchers and the doctors on the show, and they talk about the metabolic health, which simply just means our body's ability to generate energy from the things that we're feeding it.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that all these ancient cultures had these models of energy that they've passed down for millennia that modern medicine said is all woo idiot goo stuff. And yet we're finding out that at the core of our physical dysfunction is our inability to effectively manage our energy production. How we use it, how we fuel it. It's very cool. Okay. We're going way up.
We'll bring it back, but
please.
What I would just add is one of the earliest things I learned as a surgeon was the thing you never wanted to hear from a patient before you were going to start their surgery was them saying, "I'm going to die." Right?
Oh gosh.
They kind of knew, right? You were just like, "Oh, this is going to be a bad day." And of course you try and say no, and sometimes it was no, but a lot of the times they turn out to be right, and they just know. And it just goes back to these things, right? That they get ignored because they can't maybe be measured in the way that modern medicine wants to measure them. But they're certainly very real factors, and mindset plays a large role in health. And this is, I guess, what's going to bring us back to your documentary, right? We talk a lot about the sort of, we'll call it external poisons, right? And things that are having this negative influence on our health, the ways that we're choosing to try and fuel our body, and the mismatch between what our body really wants to make energy, like we've been talking about. And I think that's where this all kind of ends up coming together. And again, your documentary starts to look at that part of the problem. And it's fascinating to hear how you've experienced another part of the problem. But let's maybe talk about what role does food play in this? And I'd love to hear your perspective on where things went wrong and how things have gone wrong.
Wow. Yeah, good question. We talk about this in the documentary, that we were really inspired by Callie Means and his sister Casey Means, who wrote a book called Good Energy. And that book came out early 2024. And I first heard Callie speaking at a Joe Polish Genius Network event. And the way that Callie was explaining sort of the here's how we got here, here's how the American food system went rotten, to me was so persuasive and so simple, and lots of details, but also so simple. And it really starts with in the 1980s, when the cigarette companies started to buy the big food companies. A lot of people have forgotten about that, but those were some of the largest M&A transactions in history up to that point. And when Philip Morris was in charge of Nabisco, I don't remember if that detail is exactly correct, but once the big cigarette got in charge of big food, they're like, okay, how do we use our scientists to make food last longer, be more addictive? And then how do we use our regulatory and lobbying team to help change the food pyramid, change the supplemental nutrition assistance program? All those kinds of things in the playbook is a big part of how we got here today. Essentially, previous to the 1980s, ultra-processed foods made up only a small portion of most American diets. And today, I think it's actually now the majority of most Americans' diets. That's not a good thing. I've seen too many videos on TikTok of fast food sitting out on a shelf, time-lapsed for 3 months, and there's no mold growing on it. It still looks like it's edible. So if it hasn't rotted in 3 months, it's probably not going to do well in my digestive system. So Callie, who lives here in Phoenix, when we were introduced at a consumer health summit in May of 2024, I said, Callie, I think the way you're explaining things, you and your sister are explaining things, is so right on. Go for it. I think you're doing a great job. And little did I know that his next podcast was going to be the Tucker Carlson show, which was, I think his episode was the most shared podcast on Apple Podcast networks in all of 2024, the Callie and Casey Means episode on Tucker. And it was a tour de force. They did such a great job. And then right after that, they were on the Joe Rogan podcast, another huge episode, and they did a great job. And I was basically just like, hey, what do you think about turning your message into a documentary? And you cover the first half, Breaking Big Food, how the American food system went rotten. We'll put you in a room, we'll use some podcast clips, and you can kind of go chapter and verse. But I don't want it to just be investigative journalism, because you have that part. You're nailing it. You're on Joe Rogan and Tucker. I wanted the second half to be, and how it's being revived, to be looking at food as a more local issue, and how basically businesses, farmers, consumers all working together. You've got the farmer, the producer, the market in the middle, and then consumers, how that ecosystem can really thrive and build up and wean us off of the alliance that we have on big food.
There's another healthy aspect to that you mentioned ever so briefly. I don't think it was you. I think it was the greens lady, whoever, the one who has the green market.
So Good Living Greens. Yeah. Jill Keefe of Good Living Greens in Fountain Hills, Arizona.
Yeah. She talked about how she talked about the community aspect of this. And we recently had a guest on who talked about the physiological impact of people being isolated, that social connections have the same hormonal effect, positive hormonal effect that we get through sunshine. I mean, not the identical, but the similar that we get through sunshine and exercise and appropriate sleep and working out, that those social connections deliver the same health benefits. I thought that was really profound, that here we've got a locally owned market that's using locally sourced products, that local people gather to participate and get to know each other. And even though we don't explicitly think of that as I'm doing this for my health, it is in fact something that helps you be healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. Jill and Jeremy Keefe of Good Living Greens, Fountain Hills, Arizona, were a big inspiration to the making of Breaking Big Food. And that's why they're one of the first stops in the documentary. So Ashley and I live in Fountain Hills, and one day she was like, oh my gosh, there's this new little market. This is fantastic. And what she learned is that Jill and Jeremy started by just going out to different farmers to get stuff for themselves. And they were like, if I'm picking up eggs here and raw milk there and organic greens and vegetables here, their neighbors started to ask them, could you pick up some for me? That turned into, now I don't have any place to store this. Let's rent a space. And in the documentary, Jill refers to it, this is our love letter to Fountain Hills. They are sourcing all this great, wonderful local food, local being within 50 miles. And the town, the community of which Ashley and I were a part of, got the benefit of, okay, 2 miles from our house is all the staples that we use on a regular basis. And it's pesticide free, it's organic, it's clean, healthy. This is way better than going to the big grocery stores, because the nutrition level is going to be so much better when it's fresh, when it's fresher and it hasn't been shipped as far.
Yeah, that's
yeah. So one of the, I guess I'll play devil's advocate for a little bit here. And one of the things that oftentimes comes up when you have conversations like this and you tell people this is a healthier way to live and to source your food, and they're like, that's great if you're privileged, and if you're in, there are only so many areas of the country that can actually support this. Many of the climates obviously aren't conducive to that. How do we do this at scale is really the question, right? Big food evolved because historically, right, you couldn't feed everyone. Starvation, malnutrition were the big threats. And if you're big food, you're sitting there saying we were able to kind of solve that problem at scale. And then we were just responding to sort of the demands, right? The US dietary guidelines come out and they want food to be low fat and more processed to get the fat out. And they're just trying to solve that problem. And it's not their concern that it maybe is making people worse off than the original problem that they set out to solve.
Yeah, that is a great question. And we do get that one a lot. Right now, cleaner, organic, healthier food is more expensive in general. 100 years ago, the organic food label wasn't even a thing. It was just called food, because that's what farmers grew. I'm very much a marketeer in that I believe part of what we were wanting to do with Breaking Big Food is to create more demand, more consumer demand, because consumer demand pretty much drives everything. The very first people that could afford flat screen TVs were very well off. Nowadays, you can buy one for $400 or whatever the case may be, because market forces. And I don't pretend to try and dictate all those market forces. I just believe that if consumer demand moves the needle, then the market will move with it. And one of the other things that I've said before, like, I hope that the title of the movie, it is a little maybe salacious, right? Breaking Big Food. But nowhere in the documentary are we trying to put Kellogg's out of business or put Nabisco out of business or General Foods or whatever. More than anything, I would love for them to respond to moving consumer demand. And I think that there is some good signs. Here we are in December of 2025. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been the head of HHS for 9 months or so. And, some of the early signs that the food companies have shown on things like petroleum-based food dyes, I think is actually a really healthy sign where they're saying, hey, get rid of those for everybody. We'll all play ball if nobody can use red dye number 40. But if Nabisco can use it, then Kellogg's is going to have to use it because Nabisco is going to have the brighter food that is less expensive because they stuck to red dye number 40. And if Kellogg's switches to beet juice, it's going to be maybe not as bright. It'll be healthier, but it's also going to be more expensive. So I think that there is some healthy top-down regulation that is starting to happen, food dyes being a great example. The food companies, the big food that's out there, they have a lot of logistics and infrastructure that probably is still very useful. I do think that we're hearing a lot of people in the documentary say that they feel inspired. And that's a great word to hear. It's hard to get anybody to do anything if you're trying to change their mind, but to sit and watch the documentary for 75 minutes and say, gosh, I feel inspired. Does that mean you're going to start growing chickens in your backyard, raising chickens in your backyard? Are you going to start a hydroponic microgreens in your spare bedroom? Like those kinds of decisions, those kinds of things, or even if you're going to go start shopping at farmers markets and stuff like that. I really think, as Jill Keefe says in the documentary, that we need to federate, we need to localize food. Big food being under sort of large, I think like most of our food, most meat, most poultry, pork, and beef goes through 4 slaughterhouses in the United States. Like the majority of it goes through that. That to me, I think as a business owner, that is, wow, that what happens if a terrorist bombs one of those places? That's weakness in the infrastructure. And one of the other people, AJ Richards of FromTheFarm.org, his whole goal is to create sort of an Airbnb type model of basically shake the hand that feeds you. So you can buy beef and other protein products directly from the farmer. So he's creating infrastructure for that. I guess I'd just like to say that like the entrepreneurial spirit of America is generally pretty good. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's generally pretty good. And when people know better, they tend to want to do better and move the market. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but multifactorial, and it's definitely complex.
It was perfect because ultimately I see it the same way, right? This needs to be a ground up movement.
Yeah.
It's great that we are seeing some top down stuff happening, but ultimately this is one person at a time, right?
Yeah.
And then having that ripple effect of what can I do in my community? What can I do locally? And I'm always pleasantly surprised that I think for most people, it is actually an option. They may not be aware it's an option. They may not have looked around to see that, oh, there's actually a farmer's market that happens so close to me. And even though I live in a city, they don't realize that you don't have to go very far outside that city to find the farms that you can start to source things locally. And we can also leverage technology, right? We can ship local foods, and maybe that's not quite as ideal as consuming them locally, but they're still going to be raised better and be of better quality. And it just gets us back to the eating real food part of this, which I think is so central.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is if food matters to your health, then you should act like it does.
Yeah. I would love to hear about the chicken lady. I got such a kick out of that little set of scenes there.
Yeah, Tiffany from Inspire Farms in Gilbert, Arizona is such a personality. We had a really fun time filming with her at her shop and also her house, where she raises about 40 chickens and a couple of turkeys in her backyard. And I love that her story begins with, I never thought I was going to do anything like this. She was a homeschool mom that has some teenage girls, and she was like, oh, like raising chickens would be kind of a fun project. Well,
Right.
it turned into so much more, and obviously she loves it. She's definitely one of the more favorite characters in the documentary that I've heard before. So it doesn't surprise me that Tiffany was one of your favorites as well.
Okay. So I got to ask you, there's two dogs that seem to appear with you and Ashley everywhere. Did you also adopt a chicken?
No, we didn't end up adopting a chicken, at least not yet. So you're referring to the two Aussie doodles there, Monk and Lola, and they also during the process got a brother, that's Teddy. These puppies they're very well behaved and they're super fun to get to put on film, and we know putting them on film makes us more likable.
I did some amateur theater, and I think anybody who spent any time on the stage learns the saying, it's never work with children or animals because they're going to steal the show.
That's exactly right.
Talk about some of the, now I know on your business side, you're not unfamiliar with doing videos, creating videos. What did you run into unexpected with making this documentary?
Yeah, with Jigsaw Health, we really upped our video game starting in about 2016. My cousin actually happened to be going to USC Film School at the time. He was in between his junior and senior year. And he called me up one day and was asking, hey, is there anything I could do at Jigsaw Health, like an internship? And I was like, yeah, come on over to the office and we'll work on some stuff. And working on some stuff led to this weekly video series that we produced called #FunnyFriday, where we would push out some kind of promotional piece of content about our products, about our company. And over the time, we just kind of kept developing our chops more and more. That led actually to the creation of a whole different documentary series called Breaking Pickleball. Not really related to Breaking Big Food, but we do feel like it helped us to cut our teeth when we created the Arizona Pro Pickleball League and filmed season 1 of the making of. So you can find out more about that at breakingpickleball.com or just search for it on Amazon Prime Video. The surprise that you're kind of wondering, how is this leading up to that? The surprise was that we were able to make Breaking Pickleball somewhat in part with a grant that we got from the state of Arizona to film the project in Arizona. Really a tax credit more so than a grant. And we had applied for that grant to make Breaking Pickleball Part 2. We were fully prepared to make that until we weren't. We kind of had this intuitive sense, and it really goes back to my wife, Ashley, again, thinking, I don't think a sequel is right here. Recently, we met Callie Means, and he has this great message. And, what if we did something to help promote that message? And she was the one that had what if we did Breaking Big Food? So the surprise of this documentary is that it wasn't Breaking Pickleball Part 2. It was a totally different subject, but using the same team. And there was actually one outsider. So the film was completely produced internal, plus Cole Uphouse, who really is the director and the creator of both documentaries. And he was able to spend his whole time, full time, focused on this with help from our team. Corey, my cousin, who I mentioned, helped with the shooting and with the editing. And then we had our own internal sound engineers and graphics teams. And I mean, if you've seen it, and I think you have, you'll think that it came straight out of Hollywood. I mean, a friend of mine in the nutrition industry remarked one day, he goes, God, I'm so impressed by this. It looks like it came out of Hollywood. I was like, what? You don't think we could have done this? Is this a backhanded compliment? What am I supposed to think here, Dan?
I'll let our listeners know. As I was watching it, it was a weird feeling because I live in Phoenix. I drive by the Firefly coffee place all the time. You've got this B-roll, these overheads and drone shots. It's my hometown, and I'm looking at all, and it looks spectacular. Everything about it is just, and it's an odd feeling to be watching something with all these location shots that I know, and I'm thinking, wow, this looks really amazing. This is so for our listeners and those of you watching on YouTube, this is not, hey, I made a documentary with my iPhone and ran it through some AI to turn it into. Nobody wants to watch that. I promise you, this is definitely worth the time for a dozen different reasons, but it looks as good as anything coming from the best video producers in the world right now. Brilliant stuff. And the content is actually worth your time. It's fantastic. Oh, I have a problem here, Phil. Patrick is a marketer. I'm a marketer. I really want to ask him all kinds of questions that have nothing to do with health.
No, you read my mind, because I was going to say, talk about the challenge now of getting this message out there. As you said, the purpose of doing this, right, is to get people thinking about their food and what they're eating and how it impacts their health. And that's a challenging message to get out there. How are you going about that? What are the things that you think can get the people who need to see this, right? It's kind of easy to convince someone like me and Jack, and we've been on this train for a long time, and it's great. I'd love to watch another documentary on it. But how do you get the people who need to know about this and don't to open up their eyes and their ears?
Step one, get on the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast. Step two, ? Step three, profits.
Yeah, there you go.
to quote the whiteboard of The Office, I believe. We're very blessed in that the people that agreed to be a part of the documentary have some pretty big audiences. Callie Means, Alex Clark joined in. We actually asked Vani Hari, the food babe, to be a part of it, and she said yes, but we couldn't ever really make the schedule work. And then we have like Leah Hope. Leah Hope is an amazing transformation story. She's lost 180 pounds. We talk about her story in the documentary, and she has, I think, close to 1 million, maybe more than 1 million followers. The people who were a part of the documentary because they wanted to be, they loved the message, are helping to spread the word to their audience. As of now, we have only leaked the documentary. So we worked with a distributor. They loved the film. They're helping us to get onto Apple TV and Amazon Prime Video. Amazon Prime Video. And that drop is supposed to happen just about any day now.
We're filming on December, what's today, the 4th?
Correct. Yeah, filming on December 4th. We actually originally thought it was going to come out on Thanksgiving, but there were some hiccups. So that's why I'm like, okay, are we days away or weeks away? But we asked them, we said, hey, would you be opposed to us leaking this to YouTube? Because to me, the documentary really isn't about like monetization. It's about inspiration. Monetization will come. Jack, you and I are very big fans of the Wizard of Ads, Roy H. Williams, and a phrase that he coined that we have lived by here at Jigsaw Health and with this documentary as well is when the heart and the mind will follow. The mind will always find ways to justify what the heart has already decided. And to us, this is, let's just show who we are, show what we're doing because we believe in it. And the people who are attracted to that will find it. Yeah. They'll find it, and we will win the heart and the mind will follow. So we're not in a sprint. We're not in a monetization. Thanks to the state of Arizona and their film program, we have a lot of the costs covered via the tax credit. So we're just like super proud of the work. We're super proud of the team. It's funny in that the original title of the film is exactly the title that we ended up with. And the synopsis of the film that I wrote in September of 2024 to pitch to Callie and to Alex Clark and the other people that we asked to be a part of it, the synopsis is almost exactly the same. So it's like, we made a plan and we executed on the plan. And at the end of it, I was like, wow, I don't really have to change hardly any words of this. So now it's just a matter of time and letting the grass fire, the word of mouth spread.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. All right. So the film is Breaking Big Food. Patrick, for now, because it may not be this way forever, tell folks how they can see it or how we think they're going to be able to see it.
For right now, today,
December 4th.
December 4th at 3:57 p.m. If you go to breakingbigfood.com, you'll have a link to YouTube, and it's the full film. There's about 70,000 people that have watched it so far, which I'm very happy with. I mean, we have not spent a single dollar on ad spend. It's all been word of mouth. And someday, in the not too distant future, you'll be able to rent it on Amazon Prime Video or Apple TV. Rent or purchase for $3.99, $4.99. I'm not sure what our distributor is pricing it at.
All right. Let's point folks to Jigsaw Health as well, because whether they want to learn about supplements or what is it, Funny Friday?
Yeah, there you go.
Hashtag Funny Friday. It's definitely worth a visit.
Jigsawhealth.com is the website where we are really especially known for electrolytes, in particular magnesium and potassium. A quick PSA that I like to give everybody is there's actually two types of muscle cramps. I learned this from cardiologist Dr. Decker Weiss, who's on our scientific advisory board. If you're in the midst of an activity such as pickleball, one of my favorite activities to play, and you start cramping up in the midst of that, swimming, pickleball, running, whatever, that is a potential sign of a possible potassium deficiency. And of course, everybody thinks potassium, bananas. If you're after the activity or in the middle of the night and you get Charlie horse, leg cramp, tension in your hands kind of thing, that's a potential sign of a possible magnesium deficiency. And it's not really necessarily going to be solved with bananas. So Jigsaw Health, we have a couple of different formulas, but some of our most popular would be the Mag Soothe, sugar-free magnesium powder that's used at night. And then the potassium cocktail, also sugar-free, that is used usually first thing in the morning or at lunch, but it's designed to help you avoid both kinds of muscle cramps. And you can find all of that at jigsawhealth.com. We're also available on Amazon.
That's fascinating. I'm a middle of the night cramps kind of guy. And I've always wondered why I don't get cramps doing stuff. It's the middle of the night when it happens. It's frustrating.
It is. It is. That's why I like to share that PSA, because there are two types of cramps, and potassium isn't going to solve the middle of the night cramp.
I'll be darned. Hey, Phil, I've got one more question I want to ask him. You okay with this?
You definitely.
Patrick was once the lead singer. I'm reading off of his bio. Was once the lead singer and guitarist in a Weezer tribute band called, wait for it, folks, Budweiser.
Yeah,
Tell us about that, Patrick.
My name used to be Jonas, and I was carrying the wheel. I grew up playing guitar. I started playing when I was 13. Weezer was a band that I absolutely fell in love with in high school. Some of my friends here in the local valley were also big Weezer fans, and we were like, hey, we're not necessarily getting people to come see our local band play. What if we play some covers from one of our favorite bands? And so it was a fun time. If you search the Wayback Machine, I think there's probably some videos or posters or something along the lines of Budweiser from back in the day. But that was actually kind of pre-social media time. So that we might still have a MySpace page. I haven't checked in a long time.
Oh my Lord. So explain to folks the difference between a cover band and a tribute band.
The tribute band is where you take things a little further. You got to dress the part. If there are accents involved, obviously you got to use accents. In the case of Budweiser, I was wearing glasses like I'm wearing now before I needed them. But to be the part, to be Rivers Cuomo, you got to wear the Buddy Holly glasses.
God.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had noticed that in the bio as well. It certainly caught my attention. But awesome work that you're doing. The documentary, definitely go out, see it whichever way you can by the time this gets released. And Jigsaw Health was new to me as well, but I took a look, love some of the stuff you're doing there. We talk a lot about electrolytes in our world of diet and lifestyle stuff. Looks like a great product as well. And just excited that we were able to help push this message out. I was thinking that sometime soon there's going to have to be a film festival just for this genre, because I think we've had at least, I can think of 2 other documentaries offhand that we've had people on, and they're coming out, and there's definitely a movement here. And I think it would all be awesome if we get together somewhere and just have a big film festival on health.
I love that. It reminds me of another Roy H. Williams saying, which is the definition of a good idea is when more than one person has the same idea at the same time.
Very much.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you guys for having Patrick Sullivan Jr. Patrick Sullivan Jr., formerly the lead singer of Budweiser. And all the contact information will be available on the show notes. Y'all go watch this documentary. I promise you, it is definitely worth your time. It will be inspiring. And we'll see y'all next time.
Chances are you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't need to change your life and get healthier. So take action right now. Book a call with Dr. Ovadia's team. One small step in the right direction is all it takes to get started. Contact us at ifixhearts.com/talk. That's ifixhearts.com/talk.